Here's the deal. My friends at Brazen have spent the last year writing the book on recruiting chatbots. It's jam-packed with tons of the best practices and examples of companies who are successfully using chatbots to hire the best talent. We're talking companies like Walgreens, USAA, and Presidio. And because you're a listener of my show, they want to send you a free copy of the book. Just head over to brazen.com/chatbots to get a free copy today. You can get a copy sent to your door for postage, or you can download the digital version right now. Don't wait, because the book is flying off the shelves. And as a bonus, if you sign up today, they'll send you their #1 downloaded ebook on winning the war for talent. Again, go to brazen.com/chatbots to get all this for free today. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce Kevin Grossman, who's the president of the Talent Board. He has some information he'd like to share with you.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate being here.
And this October, you guys have a big event.
We do. So on October 14th in Washington, D.C. at the Marriott Wardman Park Hotel, we are running our Candy Symposium and Awards Gala. Every year we do research with hundreds of companies around the world and capture hundreds of thousands of candidate responses to our survey research about their candidate experience from pre-application to onboarding. And then those companies who have the highest positive candidate ratings, we celebrate them throughout the day, and into the evening, we have great speakers and sessions, and then awards dinner that evening. So that's what's happening on October 14th.
What time does it start?
It starts at 9 a.m. and goes until 10 p.m.
So it's this October 14th at the Wardman Hotel. The report that you guys generate afterwards, how can folks get that?
So they can go to our site at thetalentboard.org, and everything's available free to download.
And how can I register to come to the event on the 14th?
You go to thetalentboard.org is probably the easiest way. And if you use the code CE19VIP, you can get $50 off our registration for a total of $395 to come for the day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Lauren Epstein Show. I am your host, Lauren Epstein. We are at the Social Recruiting Strategies Conference here in Philadelphia, and it's a beautiful day. Since this morning, the sun is like brightly out. The talks are potent. I highly recommend coming to an SRSC or an eBrand conference when you get a chance. We are going to be having a conversation today about the technology stack that your company uses for recruiting. And it's beyond just your ATS. It's the entire. Look at the entire funnel, the entire pipeline of where people are being touched, and what technology do you have in place that's going to best meet your needs and the candidate's needs to get the job done. So, with me is George LaRocque. George is the principal analyst and founder of HRWins, and has been in the human capital management space for more than 25 years. George is a market analyst and advisor focused on the users and developers of HR technology. He publishes HRWins Research, so check out HRWins Research, and reports on workforce trends and related technology innovations. Welcome to the show, George.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about the stack, but I also want to talk about the thing that you created, the HR Tech Book.
Oh, okay.
And the market maps, which I think is really cool.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so we'll get to that as well.
It's very relevant to the conversation that we're going to have. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really interesting. Like, it's this open source capturing of I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
So I love it when people do things like tangential to what they're doing, kind of either free, but like as a service to the community.
Yeah.
So, when folks are thinking about the technology stack, what are they looking at? Is it like, I think of it as like a bunch of different steps in the recruiting process, or maybe a bunch of different applications that one might use. How do you see it?
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the recruiting process, because there's so much technology out there. We've seen, I track all of the VC investments, right? And in less than 3 years now, we're approaching $8 billion in VC investment. So
in HR,
in all of HR, the biggest single product type, right, is job boards. Figure that out, right? We think we would have nailed that years ago, but a lot of new models entering the market. Talent acquisition is usually number 2 to like payroll and core HR. So what that translates to for your employer or the buyer of this technology is hundreds of new vendors entering the market, new technologies entering the market. And these are startups at all different stages in that investment category. And then you've got your incumbents that aren't raising money, that are the legacy vendors that we're already using. They're all putting out new products as well. So it's overwhelming. And the point being that you have so many choices today in any given step in the recruiting process that what you really have to do is step back, and it's not really about the technology, it's about what am I trying to accomplish. I think a lot of companies, I'll be talking tomorrow about this with the ideal tech stack, and I'll be walking these folks through a conversation that says, you really need to step back and think about a few key elements, which is number 1, who's my audience? What's my strategy? And what's my budget? What can I actually do? And until I answer those questions, I really shouldn't be running out looking for shiny technical objects to throw at my process. So that's kind of where I start as well, is on the process.
Yeah. So when I was leading a TA team in DC, and the first thing I did was lay out our process.
Okay.
Like just got a sticky wall, got Post-it notes, and had everyone describe what do they do from beginning to end in recruiting people. And when we looked at it, there's a lot of ahas of like, wow, like a lot of overlap, and then when you looked at it from like steps, 70% was in like administrative paperwork and like 30% was in actually talking to people.
Yeah.
Which, I as a leader, I wanted that to be the opposite.
Right. Well, I think along with that step, it's, who are we trying to recruit, right? So it's, when I say audience, I just had a conversation with someone who, on one hand, had the lion's share of the recruiting is warehouse floor types, right? So high volume, and there's a high turnover and high growth. So a lot of volume of candidates coming through. There are skills involved, but not a highly skilled workforce. Also, call center types. So a little bit more skilled, but softer skills are what I'm looking for in my call center. So combination of sales and customer support. And then the smaller portion, about 20% of their hiring is like data scientists and e-commerce types that keep this. It's a retail type shop. So if I'm selecting my technology and building I've got a few different processes there, right? I might be using different types of assessments to look at my talent. I might want technology for that. I might be interested in a highly automated process because it's high volume. I want fewer humans in sort of shepherding my process and engaging with candidates where I need to.
For the higher turnover,
for the
lower
higher,
wage
exactly.
workers, but for the higher wage
But I
workers.
want a higher touch. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. I want a higher touch. I want I may even have different systems feeding into like a dashboard showing me, how my overall recruiting process is working, how I'm doing, but how I would manage those recruiters, what technology I would implement, and really in each of those 3 examples under that one roof would be very different, right? Mm-hmm. I want a higher touch, relationship based recruiting process with my highly skilled, my data scientists.
Mm-hmm.
They're hard to find, and when I find one, I want to bring them through the process and give them a white glove candidate experience, right? The others, I want to give a white glove candidate experience, but that's through messaging interfaces and speed and feedback, telling them where they are in the process, why, and what the next step is in WhatsApp or SMS, a text-based solution, or a web browser, versus a recruiter calling them to tell them or emailing them.
I'm curious, because the thing that you said that just kind of caught my attention, just in general in recruiting, is a lot of positions that are at the lower wages, like a warehouse worker, people say, well, it's high turnover. Like, well, why is it high turnover?
Exactly.
And does it have to be high turnover? Like, is it expensive to hire these people, and wouldn't it make more sense to just put more money into keeping them?
Right.
I'm just curious what your thoughts are
Yeah,
about that.
that's exactly what I said. So that's their scenario that I gave you, high turnover,
Yeah.
high growth. And I said, well, it seems like you have an opportunity with the recruiting process to fix some of the turnover problem. Like I wonder, I'll bet you're hiring some of the wrong people. I'll bet they're leaving for a reason. I'll bet some of it's you've got some cultural or engagement issues there, leadership problems that you might need to address, figure that out. But a lot of times you look at, when you look at really high turnover, a big piece of it is, so I don't know, there's a retail shop, big national retailer, who had a turnover problem on their shop floor, retail floor. A lot of the hiring's done at a local level there, and they were making hiring decisions to bring in extroverts to work on the retail shop floor. But what do you spend most of your time doing in retail environments?
Putting everything back together.
Right, stocking shelves, right, exactly. Do I need an extrovert for that? If I'm an extrovert, am I happy
No,
stocking
probably
shelves?
not.
No, and I leave. So they shifted, this is a very easy fix, or it sounds like common sense. And they started assessing for more of an introvert, and I don't mean the difference between being gregarious and being shy. I mean in personality type in those terms, and folks who are happier doing that kind of work.
When you get your energy
Yeah.
from being on your own versus being with other people.
Exactly.
Context.
And their attrition problem went away. I know of another major airline who had an absenteeism problem. So in this one particular location, they had a real problem with their gate personnel, like the folks who move the gate to the plane and take care of all the people around the gate. And so they looked at the problem and they did an assessment internally, and their IOs said, "Wow, we're hiring the wrong types of people for this," and they were able to solve that problem.
What kind of people were they hiring?
I don't remember specifically what the issue was, but they
Right.
were able to address absenteeism by making better hiring decisions, by putting that instrument up front. So it's not all about assessments, but to your point, turnover is usually a symptom of something being off in the hiring process.
So let's get back to the concept of the technology stack.
Okay.
Because, when I started in recruiting in the 90s, there was just a flat file database.
Yep.
That was it.
Yeah.
Right? The resumes were hand typed in.
Sure.
And now, what is someone looking at, as far as I know there's lots of vendors.
Yeah.
But, how many steps in a process would you say there are to apply technology? And if you could just kind of give us a sense of, identify them so someone could, think about, what do you mean? What am I looking at for my ATS, for my onboarding?
Yeah. Well, here's the other issue, right? When I look at my audience, it also tells me what kind of the profile of the employer, right? So if I'm a high volume recruiter, I'm a bigger company because I'm hiring a lot of people.
Sure.
I've got growth and turnover that sustains that. So the systems that I would use in that environment are different than the systems I would use in a 100 person, 200 person, 1,000 person company that has, an average growth rate and low turnover, right? I would use a different suite of technologies in that environment, and then narrow it down even further with who am I hiring? What types of jobs am I hiring for? So what I'm getting at is in your larger enterprise, right? Your generally your higher volume recruiting environments, or even if it's not high volume, but I'm hiring a lot of highly skilled folks.
Sure.
I've usually got products that it all starts with my core HR system and then extends out from there, right?
Right.
So right now, Workday, Ultimate, SAP, Oracle, they're probably the leading core HR platforms. They all have recruiting and talent related modules. They're all the systems on the talent side that everybody loves to hate, because when you start from a core of ERP and payroll and HRIS, and you extend out into other areas, you can't do everything really well.
Right.
And you
And then you have all other companies that are plugins. They all have APIs.
Right.
Smart Recruiters, greenhouse, lever,
right.
on and on and on.
Yeah, so at that large enterprise level, the systems are, Greenhouse is emerging into that enterprise. iSIMS is another one that came out of the middle market and emerged and has a pretty good foundation there. Smart Recruiters is at that level. And you still have Oracle / Taleo with the biggest market share for the large enterprise, although it's slowly churning is what everybody.
Yeah, I mean, no one. I mean, I don't know if they're your client, but I never liked Taleo.
That's a pretty common sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, Brass Ring, Taleo, they just never.
Yep.
Structurally they weren't set up right.
Yeah, yeah, and Brass Ring I think still has like of that market segment, that enterprise segment, like 13% of the market.
Yeah.
SAP has a good chunk.
It's very hard to change.
It's really hard to change, and
Right.
most people have built around it, right? With some of these other vendors, and then you've got your recruitment marketing platforms, your Phenom Peoples, telemetries, Beameries, Clinches. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out that'll call me.
Because I'm just curious in my own mind. So you have the home base, some central repository, and then APIs that connect to all these other pieces. And everyone's pretty much doing the API thing now. Has anyone still closed themselves?
So that large enterprise space, it's the hardest place to do the API thing. But
Like
it's
an
not,
Oracle
it's,
or...
it's not technical, it's cultural. So our space has a legacy of being really hard. They don't play well together.
Yeah.
So they all came out, even Workday, right, was started by the founder of PeopleSoft. None of these vendors have a wide open marketplace model. They all have marketplaces. They would argue with me.
Doesn't Smart Recruiters have? I mean, they have actually a marketplace.
They do, and that they're not. I wouldn't put them in the legacy vendor category, right? So Smart Recruiters, Greenhouse, iSIMS, they all have marketplaces.
But they're also
more
Smart
open.
Recruiters is not. It's not an HRS. It's
Right.
really more on the talent side.
Yeah, the problem wouldn't be integrating with Smart Recruiters, Greenhouse, or iSIMS. The problem would be integrating with Workday, Oracle, SAP. And if you're you want to connect your all your core employee data, requisition data into your recruiting systems. They've never played well. So
still, that's still the case.
Still, and where they do play well, it's in a very selective manner. So. If you go to one of I don't want to pick on any one of them. If you go to any of those legacy vendors, they're going to have a short list of folks.
I can name a name. You can just nod.
Okay. Yeah. I've already named them all. So, but they've got a list of who they want you to work with, and that's not how the world works anymore. As a buyer. I want to use a platform for as much as I can, but I want the flexibility to fill those gaps that you have as a platform with the solutions that I want, because I've been burned too many times working with the vendor that you've got a sweet revenue share with.
And that's fundamentally what you're saying. I mean, this whole thing is look, there's a lot of things to be done, and there's a lot of people who are doing it, and the pieces can work together.
Yeah. Now the middle market has a lot of vendors who, let's say under 5,000 employees. That's where all of these vendors that I mentioned, the more modern folks that are more open, they all came to market either supporting the middle market like iSIMS. They've been around since the 90s, but they're like circa 2010, right? Smart Recruiters, Greenhouse is like 2013, and the HR systems that are emerging in that middle market are all newer systems, and just culturally. They're wired differently. They want to do the right thing for the customer. They're not worried about controlling the customer's desktop. So it's a whole different list of solutions available there, and you have the opportunity to integrate more things a little bit more seamlessly.
I think also they're working on a different revenue model, right? I mean, I can't recall, but I imagine some of the legacy ones where they'd sell you everything on premises. There wasn't really that AAR.
Yeah, they're everybody's kind of moved to the cloud. You still have some on-premise, and at the large enterprise level, I just somebody just wrote something about this, how it's moving slowly off of on-premise. I don't see any new development going into on-premise solutions.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Oracle's taken everything off of on-prem.
And they all are, but they have an old school model, to your point, in other ways, where if I need to subscribe, it's basically a to your point, an annual recurring revenue. It's a subscription license. It's not. I'm not buying physical copies and manipulating your software. If that's the game and it's in the cloud, the promise of the cloud is that I have more control over that. But not only do I have to spend millions of dollars per year on your core platform, I then need to spend millions per year with the systems integrator, first to implement and to tweak it and do some custom development to get it right, but then to maintain it. Because when you make a change to your core platform, I've got to go back to the systems integrator or have a massive IT team that can quickly make changes to keep up so that I can keep up with your latest release. If I want to go to the next evolution of your core recruiting platform, if I'm using one of those HRIS vendors, I've got to be ready to move my configurations along. And it just, the model, that's not the model that you see in the middle market. In the middle market, there may be implementation fees, there usually are, but it's a configuration process, and then it's all done within the platform, so that as the software evolves and they add new features, your configurations go along with it.
You don't have breakdowns.
And exactly.
And they all work together.
Theoretically, I don't have breakdowns. I have other types of breakdowns.
Sure. But you have to worry about updates. You have to worry about the software changing.
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to be going on in the future as far as this technology stack?
So that's
and the one thing we didn't, and I do want to get back to the HR tech book, but the one thing we didn't really talk about is all the stages, right? So I'm going to call them out, and I want to just light up some of these. Okay. So you have marketing, right? Recruiting.
We talked about marketing,
right? You have branding. You have a lot of the story kind of creation apps.
Yep.
You have an ATS. You have onboarding. You have assessments.
Yep.
Drug and other kinds of screenings.
Sure.
What else can someone look at when they see their tech stack?
I think you covered a lot of the ground there. I think when I think about those as the major steps or like subcategories, and everybody kind of lines up within it, right? So I
haven't missed anything.
No. Well, I think I didn't hear anything about. You talked about marketing. So within marketing, I would say there's an advertising side, right? There's getting the jobs out. Am I putting the jobs on LinkedIn? Am I putting the jobs on job boards? Am I doing any sort of retargeting of any content to anyone? There's a whole advertising, conversation, which is recruitment marketing.
Yeah.
But recruitment marketing is also your career site. It's also your messaging, your brand, your content strategy,
which is a lot of pieces.
There's a whole other, so within marketing, I kind of consider the advertising, that inbound. I'm investing in advertising to create an inbound. Then there's the sourcing side of things, right? Where I would say is most people put candidate relationship management, CRM, and sourcing tools sort of adjacent to marketing. That's my outbound, right?
Yeah.
I want tools like Entello or HireTool to go out and find candidates and give recruiters tools to then engage those candidates to bring them in.
Yeah.
More like what most people think of when they think about recruiters. That's what most people outside the industry think they all do, when actually they're managing a lot of process and engaging candidates, and it's these sourcers who are really doing the outreach for the most part.
Early in the conversation you talked about, well, what's my budget?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of CEOs, I know I've kind of said this, but I hear this, is like, well, I'll pay for the result. Like, I'll pay more if I think I'm going to get the result. I don't know if that's always the case, but how does somebody really assess what their budget is?
Yeah, I find it's usually, an existing sort of scenario. Yeah. There's a business case that's developed when I'm looking to do something new, but there isn't a lot of, if I'm one of these larger employers, I probably have an ATS today, and I know what I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Everybody's moved to this subscription model, so I know that I'm spending, $300,000 per year or $1 million per year, or whatever it is on recruiting, core ATS. I want to make a move, and that's really the budget that I'm working within or looking to do better than.
So no one ever approaches the budget as, because this is how I would think about it. How much does each person bring in revenue to the company when I hire them?
Right.
And if I bring more of those people, how much is that worth to the company?
Right.
So like at government consulting companies, for instance, you really do need to get people on quickly because you're losing money. You're not getting paid even though you won the contract. Some other companies, it's okay if we wait, if we're building a product, but we wait for the right person to, we don't want the wrong person.
Right.
So
right.
Are those things taken into account?
Yeah, I think they are. I think so if I step back and say, if I had a clean page and I were, looking at, how would I invest it here, it all comes down to your point, sort of revenue per employee, and then, the cost, the opportunity and the cost, right? So it's not hard to make an argument to hire salespeople faster. That's the easiest one, right? Because if I can hire a salesperson 90 days faster than you can, that's 90 days of ramp up to revenue, right? So I end up getting a quarter of revenue in year one that you won't get, right? If it's getting my product out the door, I can also tie that to revenue if it's shipping product, and I can start to look at what my budget might be on my advertising spend, my marketing spend, but also the technology to support it. What's happening now is all this stuff is like blending together, right? Like programmatic advertising.
Say what you mean. Say more about that.
Right. So what I mean by that is like programmatic advertising is a great example. It's in one part a technology platform, but I put money into it. And I say, you spend, here's my budget, it's $100,000 for these positions. You look at the properties, you look at the job boards, you look at the social sites and what it's going to cost. And based on what we know, based on the quality of the candidates, the volume of the candidates, the profile of the candidates, the machine spends my money for me. That's marketing, but it's also technology. So now my technology is part of my marketing spend in a way. Sure. And I think that's how I would be positioning that technology.
That's really cool, by the way.
Yeah, that is really.
Because how often do you a lot of people hire people who've been doing it forever, and you don't know how they came. Yeah. That old saying of half of what I spend in advertising is worthwhile. I just don't know which half, right?
Yeah.
And now with recruiting, particularly. And I guess this is probably true in a lot of consumer stuff. You can see where did that person come through.
Right. You can see it. I think that scenario that I outlined is probably the best case pitch for programmatic advertising.
Sure.
There's still a little bit of a black box there. And I think where we're starting to get to, both in the consumer world and jobs, is peeling back that curtain to understand,
the companies that are selling the tool for the programmatic advertising, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, like how does that work, right? Like what's in that? What's the algorithm you're using to make these decisions?
Right.
Oh, don't look behind the curtain, right? Yeah.
And if it's let's just say it's honest,
yeah,
right? They get that data,
right?
And what are they going to do with that data, if not sell it to the advertisers,
right,
the platforms? And so then they're giving a feedback loop to influence the spend.
Yeah. Well, you can go.
If I was an advertiser, I'd be like, why aren't people picking our site? And what can we do? Give me that data.
Right. So we're, recruitment in any area of technology is probably, 5 to 10 years behind, like B2C or B2B, marketing, sales, et cetera. And if you go look, there are some amazing articles in the consumer world of people just railing about how Facebook numbers are off, Google lied about their metrics, this programmatic stuff is just horse crap. Yet they line right up and give them their money. They're still it's on fire. So and it's I'm not saying it's that bad in recruiting, but I'm just saying it's clear that it's the future.
Yeah.
And there's a real desire for any marketer's part, any employer's part, to get there first and take advantage of that first. So that's the line.
Let's shift conversation to the HR Tech Book.
Yeah.
And the market maps.
Yeah.
Which you just launched.
Yes.
This month.
Market maps are coming out. Yeah, the first one is talent acquisition, appropriately. It'll
So
be
tell us
out
about the
in a
HR
couple
Tech Book
weeks.
first.
So HR Tech
folks
Book,
don't know.
Yeah, so it's it was developed in partnership with a few other analysts. So there's HRWins, that's my firm. There's Aptitude Research, which is Madeline Lorano's firm. There's
I interviewed Madeline.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
She's great.
Yeah. Then there's Trish McFarlane, who is H3HR, and Ben Eubanks at Lighthouse Research. So we collaborate a lot. We work together on larger projects and just support each other in the marketplace. And for a while, we were talking about how there isn't one place where you can go and really get a view of what solutions are being offered with some credible insight, unbiased insight. There are rating sites where, and the thing about rating sites, I've been on the vendor side. We've been using rating sites for decades. Once there's a rating site, it starts getting gamed by vendors. So you put out campaigns to your customers. You can even promote it and even give away cups of coffee.
Sure.
Please go give us 5 stars.
Right.
Please go write a nice review. And that's fine. It's not that they're totally off, but they lose their credibility when you can see the ratings don't really reflect the sentiment in the market. So we looked at that and we said we're going to do this. So we created HR Tech Book. It's a directory site. There are no ratings, no ads. Anyone can add a listing. So you can go there, and if you don't see a solution that you're aware of, you can add it. We vet it. We put analyst notes on almost all of the listings that are there. Vendors can come in, and if we can validate that you're from the vendor, you can claim the listing and you can make edits to make sure that you're being represented appropriately. But we also vet your listing. So I correct a lot of vendors.
You take out a lot of superlatives.
I get a lot of
most excellent.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Class.
We all know that they use superlatives, but it's amazing. I won't call anybody out, but we've got categories and subcategories.
You can if you want. Nobody listens to this.
Yeah. Well, then why am I doing this? But they'll go in and just select every subcategory because they want to be found by everyone. And we go in and say, no, sorry, you're a recruiting system. You're not a payroll system.
Yeah, right.
You're just not. You just don't have it. I can't make that stretch.
So do you look at each piece of software and assess it?
We look at every vendor's material, and we've assessed most of the solutions that are there.
So do you actually see the solution? Someone's seen the solution, seen the software, used it?
I would say that right now we're probably running at 75%. We've had briefings of what's in there.
And is it briefings or is it actually use? I'm just curious.
We don't use the software.
Okay.
Well, in some cases, vendors as analysts, I'm given access to the software to actually go. It's a demo type environment, but I'm using the software to then give them feedback on their capabilities. I just did that for one of the bigger vendors in the space. But yeah, it's more briefings and understanding what the capabilities are.
Gotcha.
And where they fit in the market. So the market maps will all be based on the data that's in HR Tech Book.
Right.
It's another level of analysis that we're providing. So we're saying, here's talent acquisition, and we'll do it in large part like the conversation we've just had. Who works at the enterprise level, the middle market, the SMB, and we look at the business factor as well. Who's scaling?
Sure.
Who's an emerging nascent startup, and
Right.
who's a scale up, and who's a existing legacy vendor. Who's got support resources to support your business?
So the
et
more looking at the business, looking at
Yeah.
how it fits, and so now tell us about market maps, which is coming
well,
up.
that is the market map. So
that is the market map.
we're starting with talent acquisition, and we'll look at those vendors across those subcategories and map out the vendors that fit. And then we move through, to the end of the year, we go through core HR, employee engagement, employee experience, and then an overall sort of end of year sort of look at the innovators for the year.
And the four of you work on it.
The four of us, yeah, and we each have teams, but yeah, we're all the primaries.
And how can people find it?
HRtechbook.com.
HRTechBook.com.
That's right.
I mean, I really want people to go check it out.
Cool,
'Cause
thank
it's,
you.
It's very cool. I mean,
We really think we're onto something, and
Yeah.
I think to your point, it's something that we're doing for the community. We're doing it for ourselves. It's
Yeah.
great data. It's open. Everybody can search on it. Sift through the listings, add listings. It is open source.
how many listings are there now?
There's over 300 vendors in there today, and we're adding like 3-4 a day at this point.
Cool.
So yeah, I think my goal, I would love to see 1,000 vendors in 2020, and I think we'll probably get there. We've got we take big leaps at each big industry event. So I met you I didn't meet you. I saw you at Unleash a few months ago. And part of what we do is we look at all the vendors that are exhibiting at an event, we get them into HR Tech Book, and then you can filter based on who's at the event, and then you get to see how our thoughts on those vendors. So you get a head start on navigating big industry events.
As a curiosity, are you using any video or audio along with because I would love to click on it, look at and then see 3 or 4 or 5 people who've used it or.
Yeah, not yet, but we are. I just started looking at. We don't want ratings, but we would love to have real users telling real stories.
Yeah.
And so I think we might have narrowed down a way where we can actually validate users, because that's the big thing. I just don't want any opportunity. I love the vendors. I was a vendor. I love them, but God bless them. They're going to want to boost their ratings. I want real users telling real stories. So yeah, to your point, not yet, but we just launched this 4 months ago.
So the thing that's interesting, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and then we'll close up. But I remember studying the auto industry when it first came about, and there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies making cars, all kinds of cars. I think it started with electric cars, and now then all of a sudden there's three or four American and 3 big ones. And that happens in a lot, right? We had a lot of companies offering phone services, and then we had AT&T, and we reverted back a little bit. Do you see us where do you see us as in the HCM, the Human Capital Management Software, that life cycle? Because like you said, $8 billion, I mean, I'm seeing it. There is a ton of money going into this industry, and a lot of the things are either redundant or sometimes kind of half-baked, and sometimes people are doing it, but they don't really, they're just doing it from the business perspective. They don't really know.
Yep. So that's market consolidation. And
where do you think we are on that?
I've been waiting for market consolidation since 1999, and it hasn't happened, right? Now vendors have consolidated.
Right.
All of the big ATS players were acquired. SuccessFactors, Brass Ring, Taleo, they're all gone, right? Or all part of something else.
Right.
The solutions are still there, and other vendors rushed in to replace them, built on a different kind of technology with a different type of interface. And that's now happening again with conversational interfaces and artificial intelligence and machine learning. We're at the very beginning of that wave. So as long as we continue to have new foundational technologies that change the landscape, you're not going to see market consolidation. You're going to see vendors consolidate and a bunch of startups rush in to replace where they were, right? And they'll be on the new platform, on the new technology. It happened we went from client server to the web, and that's where you had the Brass Rings and RecruitSofts, et cetera. Then we went into this world of social recruiting, and then we went to mobile, and we went to the cloud, and we went into more modern interfaces, and suddenly data science and big data, all of these different trends and consumerization, they've all been changing the way the software is built and what the user expectations are. And now you're looking at conversational interfaces and so forth doing the same thing.
More of a reason to have HR Tech Book, because
that's
it's happening very quickly.
I agree with you.
And
100%.
It's not going to consolidate until, like you said, things are going to. And I couldn't agree more.
I don't know if it ever will. I argue.
Because we're at such a bleeding edge of technology. Technology affects what we're doing constantly. There's nothing that's happening in the technology space that's not going to affect human resources.
100%. And I argue with every single one of my peers about this. Because
they're wrong. No.
Yeah, right. Because they're wrong. Well, because it's a very old school traditional way to look at the market, and And they don't like it when I say, well, same line I gave you, I've been waiting for this since 99.
Yeah.
That's what was supposed to happen. I was supposed to get rich when the market consolidated,
Right.
and it did. I wasn't working at a vendor. We had a great run, and it never happened.
Right.
And that's a 1990s way of looking at the market.
Sure.
We didn't know then what we know now,
Yeah.
which is the sort of 10-year cycle where we look at technology having this, the old Jeffrey Moore sort of chasm,
Yeah,
and everything,
right.
and then everything consolidates, and then we move to the next. That's happening in like 5 years now, and nothing ever consolidates because everybody's chasing the same wave.
And it's funny you say that, because you can see it in some of those older industries, like the automotive industry. Nothing really changed with cars. The engines didn't change, the wheels didn't change, nothing really changed. And now we have electric cars, and now all of a sudden you have these new upstarts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just Tesla, but there's probably a half a dozen or more companies that are now kind of biting at the heels of the big companies.
Yeah.
Refrigerators, I don't know, TVs. Like, it's not like
Yeah. Right.
they're not constantly changing.
Right. You're right. That's a great point. I'm gonna steal that next time I argue with these guys.
Totally. Yeah. Because they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you look at like the oil business. The oil business is 160 years old.
Right.
Has not changed an inch.
Right.
And now with new energy sources, now you have these startups, literally startups,
Right.
that are nipping at their heels.
Right. Yeah, and what's happening in our world is those, like, the 160-year cycle there
Exactly.
is compressed. Right.
Yeah.
It's like we've got new stuff to build
So there-
on
there-
every couple of years.
So the folks you argue with, there is plenty of like real world data that says that we're not going to have that. We're not
Right.
going to have market consolidation the way other industries do.
Right. Like a tectonic shift in the economy, like everything blows up, that's going to hurt everybody across
Sure.
the board. And you'll see a lot of the startups just evaporate. You'll see a lot of companies, because of
But I don't know,
desperation.
the startups may evaporate, but what they're working on won't, because
Right.
they're so
It'll come back.
valuable.
It'll come
They'll
back.
just kind of get absorbed by the folks that kind of, or it'll come back.
Right.
Like, there was a big company that the Obama administration funded, a solar company. I forget what it was called. But they put in like $500 million and it didn't work out. And everyone thought, oh, well, that's, But, solar is like
Yeah.
hotter than could be.
Yeah.
Well, George, I'm really glad you came on the show. This was a fantastic conversation.
Oh, thanks. I
How
really
can-
enjoyed it.
Good. Well, that's great. I'm glad. And so how can people find you if they want to?
You can find me at HRWins.com, and everything's there, ways to contact me and read my work and all that.
And check out hrtechbook.com.
Yep.
Go to that site. Go follow George LaRocque. And again, really appreciate being on the show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. You've been listening to the Lauren Epstein Show here at Social Recruiting Strategies Conference in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Go to the SRSC or the eBrandCon websites. Sign up. Find the next conference that's going to be in your neck of the woods, because these things are just absolutely powerful. They're intimate, they're potent, and the vendors are so nice. They've got great giveaways. I see like Apple Watches. I see all sorts of technology that they're giving away abundantly, and the camaraderie is great when you have people like George Cumming and Jerry Crispin, and those are the people that you really want to be getting to know. Thanks again. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Lauren Epstein Show. Hi, this is Lauren Epstein with the Lauren Epstein Show, and I'm sitting here with Cara Mignelli, who is the leader of the Social Recruiting Strategies Conference and the eBrandCon, and they've got some exciting news. They're having Talent Acquisition Week in January of 2020. Can you tell us about that, Cara?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Lauren. We're really thrilled about 2020, which sounded really far off when I was a kid, but thrilled to be planning for 2020. And so our vision is to take a step into the future of talent acquisition. And we're really thrilled to be hosting our flagship event, SRSC, which is the Social Recruiting Strategies Conference, as well as eBrandCon, along with a new event, Talent Sourcing Strategies Summit. We'll be hosting those three separate events together at the same venue in San Francisco this coming January 28th through the 30th. And we're providing an opportunity for people to be collaborative and learn new things. If you buy a ticket to any of our three events, we're going to allow people to go from one event to another. So the agenda doesn't overlap, except for we have some great opening keynotes. And we have a shared expo floor, and we're planning fun networking events as well.
This is exciting. I could see companies sending their entire teams of recruiting folks to learn and then network. What a great opportunity. And how can folks register now?
They can visit talentacquisitionweek.com and sign up for more information. Registration will open and the full agenda will be published.
Fantastic. Well, we're really looking forward to it. Go to talentacquisitionweek.com and sign up now.
Thanks, Lauren.
If you want to sell more to HR and TA professionals, we can help you bring your brand into the ears of over 100,000 decision makers around the world. To advertise on this and other shows, contact us at lauren@laurenepstein.com.